The wind was sharp like knives, cutting through the broken walls of the ruined shelter. Snow fell slowly, covering the ground with a silent white blanket. The city had no light, no sound, only cold and silence. Everything was dead, or hiding. Or afraid, Myra held her daughter close, trying to give her warmth. The child's body was shaking. Her lips were blue, her toes purple from the cold. She was only 5 years old. She had not eaten in 2 days. Myra looked at her small face, covered in dirt and tears. She whispered gently, "Hold on, baby, just a little longer." She took off her own scarf and wrapped it around the child's feet. It didn't help much, but it was all she had. The alien patrol would pass by soon. They always came at night, checking the destroyed buildings. Myra knew it was dangerous, but she had no choice. She had to try for her daughter. For one hot meal, she left the child hidden under broken wood and metal scraps. "Don't move," she said softly. Kissing her forehead, "I'll be back soon," with food. The child didn't answer, only looked at her with tired eyes. Myra stepped into the snow, her feet numb, her heart heavy. She walked to the street where the alien lights moved. The aliens were tall, armored, and cold. They didn't care about humans, only control and order. One alien saw her, pointed a weapon. She raised her hands slowly. "I'm not a threat," she said, shaking. He didn't fire, only stared at her like she was a bug. She dropped to her knees in the snow. Tears froze on her cheeks. "My daughter is freezing," she said, voice cracking. "She's going to die." The alien didn't respond. Myra looked up with pain in her eyes. "Just one hot meal," she said, "just one. For my child." Then she whispered, almost ashamed, "I'll be yours tonight." The alien's grip tightened on his weapon. He tilted his head, confused. She wasn't begging like the others. There was something in her voice, not fear, but strength. He walked closer. Slowly. "What are you hiding?" he asked in a robotic voice. "Nothing," she lied. "Only hunger." The alien stared at her for a long time. Then, to her shock, he reached into his pack and pulled out a hot food container. He dropped it in the snow beside her. His voice was flat. "This is not a trade." She looked at the box, steaming in the cold. Tears filled her eyes again, this time from hope. "Thank you," she said, grabbing it quickly, but as she turned to run, the alien tapped a small device on his wrist. A red dot blinked where she stood. He whispered in his alien tongue, "Track this one." Myra didn't see or hear it. She ran through the ruins, holding the hot food like treasure. She reached her daughter, who was barely awake. "Here, baby," she said, opening the box, letting the steam rise. The child's eyes opened slowly. She smelled the soup, the bread. Her hands reached up weakly. Myra fed her carefully, slowly. Lovingly, the girl smiled. "Just a little," her tiny voice said. "It's warm." Myra laughed softly, brushing hair from her face. "Yes, it's warm," she replied. "We made it." But behind the walls, the red light still blinked, and far away, someone was watching. The alien soldier stood still, staring at the signal. His mind was confused. His orders clear. Humans are liars, weak and dangerous. But the child's feet were purple, and the woman had offered herself, not for power, not for money, but for love. That did not match his data. That did not match anything he knew. He turned away from the signal and walked into the snow. Maybe he would come back, maybe not. But Myra's story had just begun. She held her daughter close, both of them wrapped in hope, a small hope, warm as the food, but nearby. War was watching, and war does not sleep. The snow had covered her tracks, but not fast enough. The alien soldier stood where she had knelt just minutes ago. The red tracker blinked softly on his wrist, but he didn't follow the signal right. Away, he stood still, staring at the cold spot where her knees had touched the ground. She had begged for food, not for herself, but for a child, and she had offered her body in return. It made no sense to him. His programming said humans were selfish, violent, unworthy of mercy. But her voice had cracked with something he had no code for. Not fear, not desire, something older, deeper, love. He turned off the red light without alerting command, then moved silently through the ruins, following her scent. His boots made no sound on the snow. He was trained to kill without being seen. She was fast, for a starving woman, but not faster than him. He climbed over fallen walls, crossed burned streets, until he saw a small opening in the rubble. He waited, listened, soft whispers. The clink of a spoon. He could hear a child's breathing, shallow but alive. He stepped closer, then stopped, hidden by shadow, inside. Mira fed her daughter with shaking hands. She tore small pieces of bread, blowing on the soup before each bite. The girl smiled faintly, cheeks red again. Mira's eyes held tears she didn't let fall. The alien watched without moving. He could end this now, call for backup, take them in, but something held him there. He didn't understand it, but he didn't stop it either. Then the child coughed, and Mira reached for a cloth as she pulled it from a nearby bag. Something metallic fell out. It rolled quietly, a small disc, blinking blue for half a second. The alien's eyes narrowed. Human tech, forbidden tech. She was not just a mother. She was part of something else. A message sender, a rebel. But again, he didn't move. Instead, he whispered in his own language. "What are you planning, human?" Then, carefully, silently, he stepped back. He would follow her longer, deeper. Not as a soldier, but as a shadow. Mira didn't notice. She tucked the disc back into her bag quickly, eyes checking the corners. The child was asleep now, warm and full. Myra kissed her forehead, then stood up and pulled out a small communicator. "Base," she whispered. Code Ember still active. Target made contact. A voice replied, rough and low. Did he take the bait? She looked toward the broken wall, her eyes narrowing. "Yes," she said. "He gave food and walked away, but I think he's watching." There was silence. Then the voice said, "Good. Let him follow. Let him wonder. We'll know soon if he breaks." Myra ended the call. Hiding the device under broken bricks, she looked at her sleeping child. "I'm sorry," she whispered, "but this is the only way outside." The alien backed away into the ruins. He didn't understand human lies or love, but he knew one thing: this woman was not just a mother. She was bait and maybe a trap. Still, something inside him refused to report her. He remembered her eyes, her voice, not afraid of him, afraid for her child. That made no sense. Aliens had no children, no families, only orders, only function. He climbed a broken tower, stared at the ruined city. The night was quiet, but his mind was loud. He whispered again to himself, "What are you really hiding?" Myra didn't sleep that night. She sat with her back against the wall, a weapon in her lap. She knew someone was watching, but she didn't know if he was her enemy or her test. Either way, she had made her move. The game had begun, and her daughter's life was still the prize. The next night was colder than the last. The wind howled through broken windows, shaking metal doors inside the shelter. Mira sat in silence. Her child was asleep, wrapped in everything warm she could find. But Mira didn't sleep. Her eyes stayed open, alert, watching the darkness. She knew someone was out there. She could feel it, like a breath behind her neck. She stood slowly and stepped outside the shelter. Snow crunched softly under her boots. She didn't speak, didn't call. But she whispered in her mind, "If you're watching me, then come." Behind her, a soft thud. She didn't turn. I know you're there," she said, calm but firm. "You've been following me." The alien soldier stepped out from the shadows. His armor glowed faintly under the moonlight. He did not raise a weapon. He only stared. Quiet, Myra turned and looked up at him. "You could have turned me in." She said, "You didn't." The alien said nothing. Myra crossed her arms. "Why?" she asked. "Why are you still following me?" he replied, voice cold but unsure. "You are not what you seemed." She gave a bitter smile. "No one is." He looked past her, toward the shelter. "The child is real," he said. Myra nodded. "She's all I have." There was silence for a long moment. Then the alien said, "You were supposed to trade your body." Myra flinched, just slightly. "I offered what I had," she replied. "Humans do what they must." The alien tilted his head. "I've seen your kind kill for less." Myra stepped forward. "And I've seen your kind burn cities for more." His hand twitched near his belt, but not toward a weapon. Toward something else. Emotion, maybe. Memory, perhaps. "You're not like the others," Myra said, her voice soft now. "You gave me food, but you're not just a soldier." "Are you?" He didn't answer. She looked him in the eye. "Who were you before the war?" The alien looked away. "I was a technician," he said after a pause. "I built communication systems, not weapons." Myra raised her eyebrows. "So, how did you become this?" He looked at his armored hand. "They needed more soldiers." He said, "I was chosen, not asked, just changed." Something in Myra's face shifted. Pity, maybe, or recognition. "I lost my husband in the first year," she said quietly. "He was a medic, not a fighter. They shot him while he carried a wounded child." Her voice cracked. "At the edges, they didn't ask either." The alien stood still. No orders could explain this. No mission manual said what to do when the enemy cried for someone they lost. "You're not like the others," Myra repeated. "Maybe that's why you're still watching me." He didn't speak, but he stepped closer. Myra didn't move. Neither attacked, neither fled. She reached into her coat slowly and pulled out a small metal cube. It pulsed blue every few seconds. "This is what you're here for, right?" she said. "This little thing scares your leaders so much." The alien stared at the device. A rebel signal scrambler, rare and dangerous. Just holding it was a death sentence. "You could arrest me now." She said, "Take this. Take me. Take my child." "But you won't." He looked at the device, then at her face. "You're using your daughter," he said. Myra's jaw tightened. "I'm protecting her, by lying, by surviving." He looked at the child through the crack in the wall. "She smiled when she ate," he whispered, almost to himself, "not like the others." Myra took a step back. "I don't trust you," she said. "Good," he replied. "I don't trust myself either." Then he turned and disappeared into the shadows. No threat, no promise, just silence. Myra stood alone in the cold. Holding the cube tight, her breath was shaky, but her eyes were clear. He would come again. She knew it, and maybe, just maybe, he would choose a side, not as a soldier, but as something else. Something still buried beneath all that armor. Asterisk. The snowstorm had passed, but the cold still pressed against the bones. Inside the shelter, a small fire burned low. The child slept, her breathing soft, her feet wrapped tightly in layers of cloth. The blanket around her was old, torn, patched many times, but inside it was something no one could see. Not even trained alien scanners, not unless they knew exactly where to look. Myra sat beside her daughter, pretending to warm her hands. But her eyes were sharp, alert, watching every movement outside the cracks in the wall. She had a job to do tonight, and she had only one chance. She reached over and gently touched the corner of the blanket. Folded into the seam was a thin silver thread barely thicker than a hair. It connected to a small flat chip sewn under the child's back. It was warm, hidden, alive. A signal jammer. Built from stolen alien tech and scrap from dead cities, it didn't just block their trackers. It listened, recorded, and sometimes answered. Mira activated it by pressing 2 fingers to the cloth in a pattern. A small pulse vibrated through the fabric. The child shifted, but didn't wake. The signal was live. She whispered into a tiny mic sewn into her collar. Code Ember to base, connection stable. A low voice replied in her ear. Good, do not engage. Target is approaching. Her eyes moved back to the doorway. There was no sound, but she knew he was close. The alien soldier, the one who gave her food, the one who didn't kill her. He had returned twice since, but never came too close. Tonight, she would draw him in, not with lies, but with a truth he wasn't ready for. She stood and stepped outside the shelter. The night was quiet, sharp with cold. She didn't look around. She simply said, "She's sleeping now. The blanket keeps her warm." From the shadows, a flicker of movement. Then the alien emerged, slow, cautious. "You talk like I care," he said. Mira turned to face him. "But you came," she replied. "You always come." The alien said nothing. His eyes scanned her, scanned the shelter. He was trying to read her, decode her, but she wasn't afraid anymore. "She's not just my child," Mira said suddenly. "She's the reason I'm still human." The alien tilted his head. "She is your weakness," he said. "No," Mira said. Stepping closer, "She's my weapon." He tensed. "What do you mean?" Mira reached into her coat slowly and pulled out a small display panel. She tapped it, and a silent image appeared. Footage from alien patrols, troop movements, radio chatter. The alien's eyes widened just a little. "You've been spying on us?" he said. "For months," she replied, using the blanket, the signal, the hunger, the cold, all of it. The soldier stepped back. "Why show me this?" "Because I don't think you're like them," she said quietly. "You don't hate us. You're just following orders like we follow fear." He looked at her, long and hard. The firelight from inside the shelter flickered on his armor. He could turn her in. He could kill her and end this. Instead, he asked, "Why risk the child?" Myra looked at the doorway. "Because if I fail, she dies anyway. But if I win—" She paused, voice shaking. "She lives free." The alien looked down at the snow, then up at the stars. He remembered his own planet, long before the war, before orders, before invasion, before armor. Myra watched him quietly. She didn't beg this time. She didn't plead. She waited. Finally, the alien spoke. "There is a ship arriving in 3 days. Commanders from off-world high-value targets will be moved." Mira's heart beat faster. "Who?" she asked. "Children," he said. "Test subjects." Mira felt a knife twist in her gut. Her daughter was almost taken once. Now others were in chains, and she couldn't let it happen again. "I can get you inside," the alien said slowly. "But if they find out I helped you—" He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. Mira reached out her hand. "We both have someone to save," she said. He looked at her hand, then at the child inside the shelter. Then he reached back and took it. The snow had turned to ice, the kind that cracked underfoot and warned everything around. Myra walked through the ruined streets. Wrapped in dark cloth, her breath slow, controlled, but her mind was racing. Beside her walked the alien soldier. Not in armor this time, only in dark fabric and a long coat to blend in. He was quiet, always scanning the shadows. They were heading toward the eastern loading zone. That's where the children would be moved. That's where the ship would land. That's where everything could change or fall apart. 3 days had passed since they shook hands. 3 days of silence, watching, waiting, preparing. Mira had sent messages to the resistance through the signal in her daughter's blanket, but they hadn't responded, not once. That silence felt heavy. What if they don't come? She asked quietly. The alien didn't answer right away. Finally, he said, "Then you and I are alone." She didn't say it out loud, but part of her already knew they were alone. And still, she moved forward because there was no going back. As they reached a broken fence near the old port station, the alien held up a hand. He crouched down, his fingers touching the cold ground. "They've increased guards," he said. "Something's wrong." Mira's heart sank. Did they find out? He stood slowly, eyes narrowed. "They suspect something. Maybe not you, maybe not me, but something." Suddenly, a soft beep came from the communicator in Mira's pocket. She pulled it out, a blinking red light. They were surrounded. A sharp voice echoed from behind a crumbled wall, "Drop your weapon, traitor." Myra turned. 5 armored aliens stepped out from the shadows. Guns raised, red lights flashing. One of them pointed straight at the alien soldier. "You led us right to her, Myra's." Heart stopped. She looked at the alien beside her, his face unreadable. "What is he talking about?" she whispered. The soldier didn't move, didn't speak. "Mira?" The alien commander said coldly. "He fed you, followed you, protected you. All to find where you keep the device, the signal jammer, the recordings, everything they knew." "Is it true?" Myra asked, her voice hollow. The alien finally turned to her. "No," he said. "I didn't tell them anything. But they followed me. They used me to find you." Myra took a step back, her hands shaking. "Then you betrayed me," she whispered. "I trusted you." The alien's voice cracked, just barely. "I didn't know they were watching." "Me?" The commander raised a hand. "Kill her, take the child, destroy the signal." Mira reached for her hidden weapon, too slow. A shot fired, but not at her. The alien soldier had turned and fired first. One of the guards dropped instantly. "Run!" he shouted, pushing Mira back. "You were right. I'm not like them." Blaster fire filled the air. Mira ran, ducking behind walls. The alien fought like a storm, blocking her path with his own body, taking hit after hit. But, never falling, she reached the shelter. Breath wild, her daughter woke up, scared. Mira grabbed the child and the blanket and ran out the back. More soldiers were coming. Everything was chaos. But her daughter was warm in her arms, and still alive, behind her. The alien soldier fell to his knees, his armor smoking, his blood dark and thick. He looked up at the sky and smiled. For the first time in his life, he had made a choice, not for war, but for something human. Asterisk, the sun never truly rose, not in the burned skies above the colony, but there was enough light now to see the blood. Black and thick, frozen in patches where the alien had fallen. Mira stood beside a torn wall, holding her daughter close. They had run through the night. Her arms were weak, her lungs aching. But they had survived again. She looked back at the trail behind her. No one followed, but she wasn't sure for how long, or if he had survived the fight. Her child stirred in her arms. "Mama," she whispered, "is he gone?" Myra paused, her voice tight. "I don't know." She found an old warehouse half buried in rubble. It was cold inside, but dry. She laid her daughter down and wrapped her in the signal blanket. The faint blue pulse still working. Myra sat beside her, hands trembling, not from fear, but from confusion. He had saved her, shot his own people. But why? What changed? She closed her eyes for just a moment. And when she opened them, she was no longer alone. A sound, soft, wet, dragging. She grabbed her weapon, aimed, but stopped. It was him. The alien soldier, half collapsed, bleeding, armor cracked. He leaned against the doorway, barely standing. "I found you," he said weakly. Mira rushed to him, caught him before he fell. "You're hurt," she said. He gave a dry smile. I noticed they dragged him inside. She patched his wounds with old cloth and medicine scraps. Her daughter watched quietly. "No longer afraid? You came back." Mira whispered. "Why?" He looked at her with eyes that didn't match a soldier. "Because not all monsters have claws," he said. "I had to show you that." Myra didn't speak. She only listened. "I was there when it started." He said slowly, "When your cities burned, when your sky turned red. They told us. You were insects, violent, dirty, unworthy of mercy. They showed us videos, lies, orders, and fear." Myra's hands froze, "But you still followed." She said, "I did." He answered, "Until I saw her feet." He looked at the child. Sleeping nearby, purple from cold, he whispered, "That was not war. That was cruelty." He closed his eyes for a moment. I remembered something. A little girl, like her, from my world, from before I was taken. Myra leaned forward. "You were taken." He nodded slowly. "We were not all volunteers," he said. "They needed soldiers, so they made them, removed memories, replaced fear with loyalty. But not all of it was erased. I remembered her laugh," he whispered, "my sister. She loved warm bread and drawing stars on the floor." He looked at Mira again. "Your daughter looks like her." Silence sat heavy in the room. Mira's voice was softer now. "You're not like them." "No," he said. "And maybe I never was." She looked at his wounds, still bleeding. "You saved us." "I had to," he replied. "For her." Mira nodded slowly, then said, "We're not done." The alien blinked. "What do you mean? You said children were being moved too." "The ship," she said. "Test subjects, prisoners, they'll be taken tomorrow." "We can't let that happen." He gave a tired laugh. "You still want to fight." Mira looked down at her child. "She has a future," she said. "If I don't fight, she loses it." The alien sat up straighter, pain flashing in his eyes. "Then I'll help you," he said. One last time, Myra reached for his hand and placed something in it. It was the signal jammer, wrapped in cloth. "You know how it works better than I do," she said. "Teach me." He nodded slowly. "We'll need a plan." She smiled faintly. "We'll make one, outside." The wind howled again, but inside, something had changed. Not just trust, but alliance, the kind not built from orders or training, but from pain and sacrifice, and something older than both hope. The sky was dark, but the landing zone burned with white light. The alien transport ship hovered above the city like a steel god. Its engines hummed with cold power, its cargo bay wide open, waiting for prisoners inside a nearby tunnel. Mira crouched with her child beside her. The girl was silent. Holding the signal blanket close, her wide eyes watched her mother. She didn't cry, not this time. She was stronger now. Beside them stood the alien soldier, wounded, limping, but alive. He had changed not just his loyalty, but something deeper. In his hand was the jammer. Modified, pulsing faster now. Myra looked at him. "Are you sure this will work?" He nodded. "It will blind their comms, confuse their systems." "And after that?" she asked. He gave a tired smile. "Then we burn." The resistance had still not answered. No backup, no voices, just silence. But Mira no longer waited for anyone. Not when children were being taken. They moved fast, cutting through back alleys and broken vents near the loading zone. Cages of children were being rolled out. Some were crying, others silent with empty eyes. All were human, all were terrified. Mira pressed herself against the wall. She could hear the guards talking. "They'll be asleep for the jump," one said. "Once they're in orbit, testing begins." Rage filled her chest like fire. She looked at her daughter, then at the alien soldier. "It ends tonight," she whispered. He tapped the jammer once. The pulse spread like a wave. The alien systems blinked, then flickered. The ship lights dimmed. Warning sirens echoed. "What's happening?" A guard shouted. "Comes are dead." Another replied, "It's a breach." Myra moved like lightning. Her blaster fired straight into the first guard's chest. The alien soldier tackled another, using armor like a shield. The cages shook as children screamed, but they saw. Her face human, alive, angry, and they knew hope had come. More guards poured in. Shots lit up the loading zone. Myra was hit once, twice, but she kept moving. She unlocked cages as she passed, shouting, "Run! Follow the red lights." The children scattered like sparks in wind. The alien soldier covered their escape, his blaster glowing hot. Then, a shot hit him square in the chest. He fell, gasping. Mira turned back. "No," she screamed, running to him. Blood leaked from his mouth, thick and dark. He looked at her one last time. "You were right," he said weakly. "Only humans can burn." Then he handed her a small device, the final trigger. "You finish it?" Mira stood slowly. She looked up at the massive ship, now confused, damaged, still trying to lift off. She raised the trigger high and pressed it. A wave of fire erupted across the landing zone. Every stolen signal, every blocked message now surged back like a scream. The ship's systems collapsed, engines burst into flame. And the sky lit up like it remembered what fury meant. From far away, resistance radios finally came to life. Voices shouting, cheering, signal received. "We see fire." She did. Mira stood in the middle of it all. Her child ran to her, wrapping her arms around her legs. "Mama," she whispered. "Did we win?" Mira looked around at the burning wreck. The free children, the silence after chaos. She knelt and kissed her daughter's forehead. "Yes," she whispered, "we did." Behind her, the alien soldier's body lay still. But not forgotten, not hated, not feared. He had burned too, not with hate, but with choice. Mira looked up at the sky, broken, dark, but no longer quiet. Not anymore. Now it carried voices, messages, hope. She held her daughter's hand and walked toward the ruins, toward what was next. Whatever came, they would face it, together, because only humans can burn. And when they do, they light the dark.